Alright guys, Anti-Alchemist Part 3. We're going to start so this is Friday morning. So this will be our second collection. We were able to get 2 alchemists and 1 gallows off the first collection. And the goal of the Anti-Alchemist is just to accomplish the alchemist strategy a little more efficiently. So we're going to do the same routine that we did yesterday night, which is collect and delete housing. Do not collect supply production yet. We're going to plant a few gallows with a portion of our collection. The alloy specifically, because we still have some residual supply from the ascended stuff that we started with, and then here in Arvahall, I also included 3 tanneries into the original settlement. So we're staying afloat on the supplies for now. Eventually, we are going to get to the point where we're going to have permanent supply producers, and we can't just build the breweries during collection and then delete them. We're going to have to keep them permanently planted. But for now, we're just trying to snowball the original alloy that we have. So collect and delete houses, replace with churches. Once we get enough alloy, we'll build some gallows, wait for them to cook, and then do the rest of the collection. So I'll be right back when that's ready. All right, we have our 150% happiness, so we're ready to collect everything. Remember to not collect your alchemists during this process. We're going to wait to collect those until we have the boost multiplier from the breweries. So I tried to group those separately just so I don't fat finger them, but we can collect all the coin now. In the process, I didn't take a note of that, but in the process of collecting and deleting houses, I got 260 alloy from this round. So then another basically 300 from the remaining coin at the full happiness metric. So let's do a quick calculation on how many alchemists we'll be able to get from this round. We're still going to get 225 more alloy from the pair of our alchemists, plus 30 from the tanneries in the back, which is actually, because those will be multiplied. So those will be 45 for the 3 of the tanneries on the alloy. So 270 alloy, plus the 575 that we've accumulated brings us up to 845 alloy. And you can see where this system starts snowballing a lot faster than the traditional alchemist guide. So let's do some quick math, figure out how many alchemists we're hoping to plant this round. So at this point, I'm thinking 2 alchemists and then 4 gallows here in Arvahall. Conveyor might play out a little bit differently, but I think that's going to be the best move here in Arvahall. And that'll actually basically eliminate all of our churches in terms of happiness. You can continue repeating this pattern with the collect and delete once you reach that point. But to me, that's kind of overkill, like I said in part 2 of this little series. I'm going to rush all these just for the real goal is to churches are a waste of space, right? It gives you happiness in some actions, but they're primarily a waste of space. So the goal is to replace the footprint of churches early on with things that are generating alloy, even if it's only a partial amount, like we're collecting these potentially at 20% or 60% happiness, but it's still more productive than the wasted space of a church. So now we have a ton of surplus happiness, right? We should actually be able to delete most of our churches. Oh, one too many. That's all right. I think I have enough coin to to rebuild it. It's 3.5 million coin. So we'll rebuild the 1 church. Let's do the rest of this with breweries. So we do have 3.4 million coin, but we're down to 264,000 supplies. And part of the strategy depends on using that supply production from your main city, from ascended buildings, to omit supply production from the first part of the settlement. But once we get a couple collections in, that's not going to be enough to sustain the process. So at this point, I have enough happiness to only need 5 churches to begin my collection, and those I will delete, replace with more housing for alloy. But at this point, the breweries will stay. So we're going to plant the mid-collection to get the supply boost on these guys. So now we're up to 480,000. We have the 446 alloy that we need for 2 more alchemists. But the breweries are going to stay this time. We're not going to delete them mid-cycle because on our next collection, we are going to start need to ramping up the supply side as well. So let me get that set up. All right, so everything's reassembled here. I got 2 more alchemists. So this round we accomplished 2 alchemists plus 4 gallows. I did add 1 more tannery as well as 1 more brewery, and those will stay in the collection. We're not going to delete the breweries this time around because we don't need the churches anymore, right? We've accomplished enough happiness with the gallows that we can start our next repetition at 80% on the housing, collect and delete the housing, and at this point we're probably going to have to dip into some of the estate houses, but that's fine. They serve their purpose, and the goal of that is to reduce population on the housing. Since we're starting with a city full of houses, we kind of want to reduce the population and therefore reduce the demand for happiness, but also to multiply the coin production of housing to justify the cost of delete and rebuild as we go through this. At this point, we're up to 3.2 million in coin. So the coin really isn't even an issue anymore on deleting those. So next collection here in Arbahol is going to be collect and delete, but the process is a whole lot more simple because we don't have to wait for gallows to complete building before planting breweries. We can just collect and delete houses, replace with churches, swipe everything else at 150%, and then delete the churches and make the improvements that we intend to make, right? Pretty simple. Like I said in the other video, you could theoretically collect and delete tanneries one by one and replace with breweries to kind of optimize the system. I think that's too much effort personally. But this is pretty much the anti-alchemist in a nutshell. I probably won't do another expansion on my next collection because I do want to get a few more alchemists and a few more gallows just so the total collection is mostly happy and pretty sustainable on alloy. And then the collection after that, I'll probably start getting some more expansions. So hopefully this is helpful. I'm going to jump over to Conrear, do that collection for you guys. Remember, that one's kind of a step ahead, essentially, just from the original resources that I started with. So let me get over there real quick. All right, here in Conrear, collect and delete. The first collection that I did here in Conrear, we did not have to wait for gallows to complete before we planted a brewery. We didn't even plant a brewery because we didn't have supply production to multiply. But here in Conrear on the second collection, that will be the case because we have the 2 alchemists that we planted yesterday. Same setup, collect and delete houses. We're starting at 60%. I'll be right back with that. Also, too, before I do this, I don't want to do it real time just because I don't want to make the video longer than it needs to be. But you guys can see that it's 6:48. And then when I come back with the next part, we'll check the time just so you guys kind of get a measure of how long this takes. It is really not a very difficult process. All right, mostly ready. We need 40 more happiness. It is now 6:51, so it took me 3 minutes. And the 40 happiness that we need, we can accomplish just with the active deleting house. And we have a little bit of extra happiness. We've generated 289 alloy so far. We're up to almost 4 million in coin. We're at 150%, so let's go ahead and get the rest of the coin at least. So almost 700 alloy. We're at 694, and then 4.9 million. So we'll get another 225 alloy from the alchemist, plus the 694 that we have. We'll be up to 919 alloy. So here in Conrear, I'm going to do 3 alchemists and 2 gallows this round. So we'll still have some of the churches going into next round, and the breweries will not be permanent because I still have more original supplies than I had in Arbahol, right? So the breweries are now permanent in Arbahol. Here in Conrear, I'm going to do 1 more collection with fewer gallows, more alchemists. So in Arbahol, I added 2 alchemists, 4 gallows. Here in Conrear, I'm going to go with the 3 alchemists and only 2 gallows, and then use the churches for 1 more collection because I have enough original supplies to kind of coast 1 more session here in Conrear. So that's basically the gist of it, guys. Let me get this set up for you, and then we'll call it a wrap. All right, 2 gallows down, and I actually deleted one more multi-story just to free up some happiness in order to delete more churches. So 7 breweries planted, and remember, we're only using these for the supply boost on the alchemist, and it's going to cost coin to build these breweries and then just delete them again. It's going to cost coin on that, but we have 4.8 million. That's part of the strategy that I went over yesterday. So let's go ahead and we're going to delete the breweries as well as a few of the churches at least. We don't need to delete all of them. But we have enough alloy now for 3 more alchemists. So let me get that set up. I'll be right back. All right, mostly done. I miscalculated my alloy. I had 900, which was enough for 3 alchemists and 3 gallows. I only planted 2 in the collection process, but I realized that as I was putting it back together. So there's a third gallows in there. At 100% happiness, which is awesome. We still have a bunch of houses. I'm actually gonna, it's the same 6 churches that I've been starting with. I'm actually gonna delete 2 more though, and squeeze in a little bit more alloy with housing from the next collection. So let me get that set up. All right, so down to 80% happiness now, but only have to delete 3 houses to get back up to the 100. So those first 3 houses will be 24 alloy, and then start from 100%. So next collection should be a pretty healthy amount of alloy because we also have 3 additional alchemists. And then same pattern in Arval. I'm gonna hold off on additional expansions just until I get through this first, get it sustainable to where it's always 150% and I have a balance of coin supplies. But right now we're just trying to rack up alloy. So 264,000 alloy, that's getting to the point where even if I do generate enough alloy, I won't have enough supplies to plant as many alchemists as I have alloy. So at that point, we're gonna delete the churches that we replace with gallows, but then keep our breweries permanently planted. Same thing that we did in Arval. So that's a wrap for this little series. I'm gonna stop it here because you guys have already seen the step after this in Arval. So you already know what comes after this. And I'll make another video at some point in the season just so you guys can see the progress of it. But pretty efficient way to set up QI. So hope this is helpful. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.